What's up, everybody? Hopefully, you guys are doing good as always. Today, we'll be breaking down some very cool data that I found online regarding trading. Regardless of your playing style or your opening or your rating, trading is something that you're going to do in every single game. That being said, there are players who trade less and players who trade more. So I went ahead and I found some data, and I'm actually going to pop up a graph that I found online on the screen right now. This was a graph from chessvision.ai. It's a very cool program that managed to find this, so I'll leave the link down below if you want to go ahead and find the original article. And what you can clearly see is that the higher rated you are, the less you tend to trade. This data was collected from 2 million chess games on leadchess.org, and they broke it down into ELO rating. So players who are 1,000 ELO rating on leadchess.org end up having around a 0.26 captures per move, whereas players that are 2,600, so grandmaster type of players, or at least very high rated players, end up having less than a 0.22 captures per move. This massive difference is cool for a number of reasons. First off, one really cool thing that you can use this for is trying to see, by just looking at a game, trying to figure out what rating the players were. So if you give a player just a random game and you ask them to find the rating of the players, they might compare the best moves to the moves that were played and try to figure out, how good are the players' moves compared to the engine's best moves, and that way you can try to figure out the rating. But now you can maybe even just use the captures that were used and therefore try to figure out, are there a lot of captures, are there not a lot of captures, and by that try to assess the rating. So that's one very cool thing that you can apply this data to. A more useful way to use this data is to make yourself a better chess player by maybe making yourself a bit better when it comes to when you trade. A horrible way to use this data is just to say, okay, grandmasters trade way less than I do, so let me just cut back on 10% of my trades and I'll be fine. No, grandmasters, they don't come into the game with the mindset of, okay, I'm a grandmaster, so I only have to trade like 10%. That's not how it works. Instead, what they do is they think more about the outcome of the trade, because I think a lot of beginner players, they just trade for the sake of simplifying the position, whereas grandmasters, they end up trading only because they realize that in the end, the outcome of that trade will be a little bit better for them. So I'm going to use a very simple example to show this in a real game. So we're going to use the Roy Lopez opening with a6, a very common opening that tons of players have reached. And already in this opening, there's a few ways to go. You can play bishop to a4 and preserve your bishop, maybe preserve a possible pin in the future. You can just take the bishop and go from there. Now, often the better players won't take, because what happens is if you take the bishop, then d takes the bishop back, and all of a sudden this bishop can come into play. This queen might be able to, in some lines, come to d4, and obviously, for example, if the knight takes, then queen d4, and all of a sudden the queen is becoming a bit more powerful. So by taking with this pawn, you are weakening your structure here as black, but you are allowing some future possibilities for your other pieces, and therefore a lot of grandmasters will not trade. In fact, I have some data pulled up from the Mega database, which is a database from all grandmasters and all high-level rated players. And according to this database, 185,879 games have been played where the bishop moved to a4, and only roughly 31,000 games have been played where the bishop takes. So a massive difference where you can see that clearly more players preserve their bishop and don't give black the ability to take, because grandmasters, again, they figure out that the outcome is not really that good for them. Whereas if we compare this to data on Lichess from lower rated players, so on Lichess I have more data pulled up from 1,600 rated players, and on Lichess, moving the bishop to a4 has been played 184,000 times, and taking the knight has been played 128,000 times. So moving the bishop is still more common, but you see a big difference where about 5 times in the Mega database, bishop to a4 is played 5 times more, whereas here it's not even double the amount of time. So the big takeaway of this video is that every time you have the ability to trade, just take a moment to really think, should I trade? A lot of players, like I mentioned before, just trade for the sake of removing some tension from the board. They see this, two minor pieces here, and they're just like, let's just get them out of here so I don't have to think about those anymore. But the truth is, your opponent also has to think about your bishop. It's not like it's a one-way street where only you have to have more calculations going. It's also harder for them, and therefore you want to really think, is it better for me or is it better for them? And that's the big takeaway. Every time you have the ability to trade, take a moment, calculate a few moves ahead, and see, is the end result better for me or is it worse for me, and go from there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll leave down below in the description another video I highly recommend you watch, which is exactly when you should trade, with specific rules about when it is good and when it is bad to trade. And that's just going to make you even a better player when it comes to trading. Regardless, thank you guys so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed, and make sure you guys subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.